what we're doing here today is an example of a phenomena that we see repeated over and over again, where actions that help to solve the climate crisis also have profound economic benefits, putting people to work, saving on energy costs, making our buildings and our economy more efficient. I guess we're long past the time where people used to say there's a conflict between the environment and the economy. I hope we are, because this does demonstrate, as so many other activities demonstrate, that when we do the right thing for the environment, far more often than not, it is also the right thing for the economy. The mayor has spelled out in impressive detail all of the facts and figures that illustrate why white roofs are an important part of a comprehensive plan to address the urban heat island effect and to increase the reflectivity of the surface and at the same time save on energy consumption. A friend of mine out on the other coast, Art Rosenfeld in California, has been one of the world leaders in advancing this initiative, and I know if he were here, he would join me in congratulating and thanking Mayor Bloomberg for what he is doing. This is, of course, a big week here in New York City. Of course, every week is a big week here in New York City, but this one even more than usual, I'd guess, with leaders from all over the world coming together to start the week by addressing the climate crisis and the need to act. And after all the talking is done, it comes down to practical action, and this is an example of practical action to get with it and start solving this crisis. I'd like to just conclude by saying that we are facing in our country a need to take action at the national level in order to position the United States to provide the leadership necessary in the crucial global negotiation this December in Copenhagen, Denmark. And so in the middle of this climate week here in New York with all these world leaders gathered, it has an even bigger impact to have the mayor of this great city demonstrating such impressive and important leadership and showing what we need to do in order to get started solving this thing.
It's not going to be me, it is the people that this administration's been able to attract that are really doing these things. There's 80,000 teachers and 1,500 principals. There's all the people that work on the environment here, led by Rick Agawala. And in the end, we have to bring down crime, we have to keep the streets clean, we have to work on our parks, we have to make those investments that will give us a future. But the investments that we're really making are in our planet and in our children. Yes, Miss?
For the former Vice President,
yes.
Sir, you spoke very highly of Mayor Bloomberg's leadership on climate change and this initiative, and I'm wondering if that means you are supporting him in the mayor's race or your fellow Democrat.
Well, I think today's event demonstrates, among many other things, that the issue of solving the climate crisis goes beyond party politics and party labels. I'm proud to endorse the leadership and the actions that Mayor Bloomberg has been taking for quite a long time on this issue, and this is just another example of that. I am a recovering politician. I'm on about step 9, so I try to stay out of the partisan races. But I'm very proud of Mike Bloomberg's leadership. I really am. I'm not just saying it. I get a chance to work with mayors all over this country, and actually mayors in lots of other countries as well. And I know real leadership on the environment when I see it, and this is the real deal.
Sir?
Mr. Vice President, you mentioned about mayors. It seems that anyone who follows this beat around the world in the United States, the mayors and local people get it. but national legislature seems to be like a speed bump.
Yeah.
What's going on there? Why is there a disconnect between local volunteer efforts and our national Congress?
Yeah, it's a good question. The answer that I'd like to give would take more time than we really have here. But you're quite right that mayors around this country, by and large, have been providing much better leadership than the Congress as a whole. Now, the House of Representatives cast a courageous vote earlier this year to address the climate crisis, and I'm still hopeful that the United States Senate will as well. Just briefly, I think that the replacement of newspapers by television as the dominant communications medium has really changed the information economy and has changed the nature of politics at the national level, so that business lobbies have far more power than they did in the past, simply because every person elected to federal office has to spend so much time raising money to buy the 30-second TV ads. The good news is that a lot of business leaders have now themselves gone out in front of politicians in providing leadership, and we're beginning to see a big shift partly for that reason. But the role of money in national politics has become way too large and way too unhealthy. But I'm hopeful. I do believe that the rising commitment of the American people to solve this crisis is making a big difference. And I will point you in the direction of a couple of polls that have come out just in the last few weeks showing that a very solid majority of Americans support taking bold action by passing the legislation pending in the United States Senate. And those who cast tough votes in marginal districts in the House of Representatives have ended up being helped by that vote. And those who are wringing their hands and being wishy-washy about it, they're the ones that are hurt by it. So I hope the United States Senate will look at that, look at their whole cards, what their constituents really feel, and step up to the plate and support that legislation.
What are some other examples of creative environmental initiatives that you'd like to see implemented on a more broad scale?
Some other examples of environmental initiatives?
I'd like to see implemented on a more broad scale.
Well, I've got a book being published November the 3rd called Our Choice that will give you an extensive answer to your question. All of the proceeds from that book, by the way, will go to the Alliance for Climate Protection. But there's so many of them. Efficiency in industry and business, in almost every walk of life, is a great example. We ought to look at the fact that a lot of the old technologies that are still in common use are more than 100 years old. They're horribly inefficient, and by replacing them, we create jobs, we cut down on energy use and CO2 emissions, and save the environment and the economy at the same time. We've got really three crises facing us at the national level: the climate crisis, the security crisis, because we're so absurdly dependent on foreign oil, and the economic crisis. And you know, the first quarter of this year, we had a current account deficit of $100 billion, lower than usual because of the recession. $46 billion of that was paid for foreign oil and petroleum products. So the common thread linking the economic, security, and climate crises is our absurd overdependence on carbon-based fuels. You grab a hold of that thread and pull it, all three of these crises unravel, and you hold in your hand the answer, which is a shift to renewable energy and an emphasis on efficiency.
Yes, sir.
This is for the Vice President. Given that the healthcare debate has been so controversial, do you fear that lawmakers might lose political will to address climate change?
Well, the healthcare debate in Washington's taken a lot longer than anybody thought it would, but I see some encouraging signs that they're close to a possible breakthrough there. There have been negotiations going on intensively the last few days, and I'm hopeful that they will get that done. And as soon as they do, I believe they'll take up energy and climate next.